Why would they enshrine particular powers against the president, saying that the president can't do these things if the president could just ignore that anyway?
Because I think the president can do whatever he wants to do.
Okay. Anything else?
I mean, no, I think you have to admit that everything is looking good. Inflation is down to the
No.
very
I think
down.
you actually outlined every single problem that I have right now. I think that's your name. Or no, it's,
Yeah,
I can't
my
tell.
main account got banned, so on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, well, first off, I want to say I'm sorry to hear about Joe Biden. What's going on with him?
Yeah, it's a shame. I hope he's all right.
But yeah, what did you what is your biggest issue with Trump? Let's start there.
It's a tall list. I would say that my biggest problem is that I think he holds a contempt for democracy. That's going to be my biggest problem. But ultimately, I think his second term has been pretty unsuccessful. He's been trying to do a lot of stuff that is illegal. Doge has been kind of a failure. It seems like he's unable to get Congress or to pass any legislation because he's a historically divisive president, so that's necessarily going to happen. We can stick on any of those if you want to.
Yeah, well, let's start with tonight. He's trying to push that big bill.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those things in the bill I actually disagree with as well. As far as like, I think they said in that bill there would be an issue with like they're going to cut Medicaid. Is that correct in that bill or something?
I've heard tales. I've heard people say that, but I haven't read it, so I don't know for sure.
Okay, but the one thing I can agree with on the bill that is a no tax on tips.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
That's
That's a decent proposal, but the problem is that like Donald Trump has. We've seen this throughout his entire first term, and we're starting to see it now. Is that Donald Trump is just not a good negotiator. He's not good at rallying both sides of Congress together to actually pass any legislation. I think last term the only big piece of legislation that he got a concession in was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and other than that, he was like not super good at getting legislation passed, and it seems like we're probably going to see the same thing here.
Well, he is a good negotiator. He just got $1 trillion in funding from other countries.
$1 trillion in funding from other countries. What do you mean?
Investments, like investments. They're going to invest in the U.S. $1 trillion between Saudi Arabia, Qatar, a couple other ones. You see all that?
Well, I mean, the investment from Saudi Arabia, I imagine, wasn't super hard to get because Saudi Arabia is going to be one of our closest allies. Qatar, there's a bunch of controversy there, but I think Qatar just committed to buying our military weapons, which I imagine isn't a super hard sell to anybody else either. But when I'm talking about like negotiating, I'm talking about like bringing both sides of Congress together to pass legislation.
Oh, well, I mean, that's hard for any candidate at the other side. Joe Biden couldn't do it either.
Well, Joe Biden did do it actually like remarkably well. He got a lot of bipartisan pieces of legislation passed.
Not so much like Bill Clinton did or other past Democrats.
Yeah, sure, but more than Donald Trump did.
Perhaps, but most you understand most of the Democratic Party is anti-Trump no matter what he does. It's hard for the Democrats to come together with him. They're really biased towards him.
So if you're trying to bring both halves of Congress together, do you think it's a wise thing to open a speech about how the Democrats are never going to meet me on anything because they're ideologically opposed to me, or do you think you should actually be trying to make an effort to negotiate with the Democrats?
I think you should make an effort, but they're not budging on their end to make an effort as well to meet him halfway.
Yeah, but Donald Trump hasn't. Donald Trump has spent like 8 years tearing down the credibility of the Democratic Party. In his first address to Congress, the joint session, half of it was about how the Democrats are unwilling to work with him, even though he didn't propose anything. Like that's not setting the table well if you're trying to bring Democrats to the table.
Well, I mean, when you have spokespersons of the Democratic Party like a Jasmine Crockett and other ones AOC who blatantly just disregard Trump as a human being in general, they're not willing to meet with him. And if you look at the only person who is actually willing to meet with him is actually Bernie Sanders, even though he's an independent, he is one to negotiate.
Don't you think it would have been better for Donald Trump as like a good negotiator, as someone who wants to be unifying, to not insult the whole Democratic Congress?
Yeah, because they won't meet him halfway with anything.
He hadn't proposed it. He hadn't proposed anything by that point.
He's proposed what?
by the time that he had that big joint session speech towards the beginning of his presidency, he hadn't introduced anything, and he started the speech by criticizing the Democrats. That's not a good way to bring Democrats to the table.
No, I agree, but I'm just saying that.
So that's what I'm saying is that Donald Trump is bad at getting legislation passed because he's too divisive. Before proposing anything, he was already attacking the Democrats that he wanted to vote on that bill. That's just bad strategy.
Well, in that sense, he doesn't really have to appeal to Democrats because Republicans have House and Senate control.
Well, he also, I mean, the first budget proposal didn't pass either because he couldn't even get all the Republicans.
Well, yeah, because you have those like for the person from Maine and a couple other ones who are just. Like on the fence. But in reality, with this new big bill he's trying to pass, actually right now they're trying to push it through right now, actually, as we speak. Has a lot of good things in there, and the Democrats are budgeting for like no tax on tips, tax.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you can have a couple decent lines in a bill, but that doesn't mean that the bill A is going to pass and B is a good bill.
No, I agree, but I'm just saying that in this bill there's more good than bad.
Well, it's also not going to do anything if it doesn't pass.
Right, but that's the issue, is that the Democrats and even some Republicans won't come to the side of trying to push forward the president's agenda.
That's not Congress's job. It's the president to try and get Congress to pass laws.
Right, I agree, but the thing is that they're so biased.
That is necessarily on him. That's the whole job of the president.
I know, but you have to understand the bias of the Trump. You have to understand the bias towards him is the most of any president ever.
So don't you think it's kind of reasonable to be biased against a person whose first speech to you was criticizing you? Like if I was saying like, oh yeah, what should I call you? What should I call you to say your name is?
My name's Harold.
Okay. So if I say, oh yeah, I need Harold to come over to my house tomorrow so we can negotiate this business deal, that fucking piece of shit, I hate him. Do you think that that's going to make you want to come to my house?
No, but that's not my job is to like you or not. It's my job.
That is kind of your job. Your job is to not make all of Congress hate you.
No, it's just like with your coworkers. You don't like most of them, but you still have to work with them.
Yeah, but you would probably get fired if you said that these coworkers are such pieces of shit and they're never going to work with me on any project. You're probably going to get fired.
Well, it depends who you work for. But the thing is that like the Congress people can't have a bias towards Trump when the American people are the main priority to protect and to help out. So even if it's agreeing with Satan, sometimes you have to do that to better the population.
Why would Donald Trump? So do you think that Donald Trump should be able to say anything to Congress and Congress shouldn't hold any bias against him?
Well, yeah, because they're not working for they're working for us. So it's like,
right. So I mean, that's not working for you isn't the same as working for the president. But if I was to say like, so if Donald Trump ended up coming into the joint session, and he said Democrats are evil, they're devils, they're never going to be able to work with me, and I think that we should kill them. Okay, and then he tries to get a bill passed through Congress. Would you expect any Democrat to vote for that bill?
Depends on what's in the bill.
Really?
Yeah, again, my job isn't to like him. My job is to work for American people. That's why I'm in there. That's why American people voted for me to be in there. Do you think
that makes Trump a bad negotiator if he comes in and says that?
I mean, it depends how you take it. I mean, again, this has nothing to do with him. It's to do with the people.
Well, no, it does. It does have to do with him because the stream is about him. I'm saying that Donald Trump is a bad negotiator. He's bad at bringing both halves of Congress together because all he does is insult the Democrats. He's not a unifying figure, and that seems to be totally true.
I understand, but they say the same things towards him, so he's just saying back what they say to him.
Yeah, don't you think it's probably the job of the president to kind of rise above that?
There's only so much you can do when the bias is so great. Like when you have Tim Walz.
Why was the bias there?
What do you mean, why is the bias there?
Like, why are people biased against Donald Trump?
Because I agree with you with some things he says.
Right. Again, so so it's not that they're just biased because of against Donald Trump because they don't like the way that he looks. It's because he's the one that started, who like basically blew up the entire political scene in 2015 by making like crude insults for his political opponents.
Well, some things he was correct on, some things he wasn't, and I agree that the insults.
Well, I'm saying this is why people are biased against him, is because he started his political career by basically character assassinating everybody that runs against him. So why would you expect those people who he character assassinated to join forces with him?
Because they work for us.
I understand that, and I understand that you're saying that Congress should rise above, but don't you also think that the president should rise above?
I mean, yeah, but if you get the same energy back, give it to him. You know what I mean? But the thing is, like,
Wait, wait,
when
wait,
you
wait,
have
wait, wait. Why can't you say the same exact thing for Congress doing that to the president? If Donald Trump is giving this aggressive energy, why wouldn't Congress do the same?
well, show them. Okay, it's
This
like a
is
mute
the
point.
the point that I'm
They're saying
making.
he should rise
The,
above.
the
I'm saying
point
they
that
should
I'm
rise
making
above.
is that Donald Trump is a divisive figure to be the head of the country, and that's going to mean bad things for getting bipartisan legislation passed.
Okay, if you want to talk about being divisive, Joe Biden did the same thing. He's the one who called Republicans suckers and losers and trash. Like he said that too. So
No,
it's
he
the same
didn't.
thing. He did call them trash, Republicans trash.
I
He
think he
did.
called the ideology trash, and I think that's fair. But to say that that's comparable to making fun of like Nancy Pelosi's husband who was attacked by a hammer, or saying that he likes the war prisoners that didn't get captured, or saying that the Democratic Party is a swarm of locusts who's trying to steal the country from you, like that's not even remotely comparable.
It is comparable when you have other Democrat figures saying the same thing
You
towards
do
him,
you
like
do
Tim
you
Walz.
really think that Joe Biden calling Republican ideology trash is comparable to Donald Trump making fun of Nancy Pelosi's husband who just got attacked with a hammer?
Okay, Nancy Pelosi's husband isn't in Congress, so why does it matter?
Can you answer that question, please? Do you think that's comparable? Like, which do you think is worse?
Biden,
You
because
think Biden's calling
Joe,
Trump voters trash is worse than Donald Trump making fun of a potential murder victim? Do you think that's worse?
well, let me explain. Joe Biden was talking to half the country when he said that,
Okay, what
and
about when Donald Trump called Democrats a swarm of locusts who are trying to steal the country? Do you think that was worse?
um, then what? What Biden said?
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're both the same. If you ask me, they're both divisive.
You're genuinely telling me that you think Joe Biden was as divisive as Donald Trump.
Yes,
If that's the case, why were so many Republicans in Congress willing to work with Joe Biden?
I mean Republicans rise above Democrats, I guess. But the thing is that
Republicans rise above Democrats. Why doesn't
Yeah.
well then why doesn't Trump rise above the
Okay, but let me
Democrats in
ask you this.
Congress?
Okay, so when the Democrats
Wait,
call
hold on.
Elon,
Why if Republicans rise against rise above Democrats, why doesn't Trump rise above the Democrats in Congress?
because he's the president.
So
What do you mean so?
if Republicans rise above Democrats, then why doesn't Trump rise above the attacks coming from him from Democrats in Congress?
I mean, it's a good question.
I agree.
But again,
That's
but
my
again,
problem is that
again,
he's too divisive to get Congress to come together. Joe Biden clearly wasn't too divisive to get Congress to come together because he passed giant pieces of bipartisan legislation.
well, he had control of the House too, though. He had to get a majority.
Trump has control of both halves of Congress right now.
Yeah, but he's been there 100 days.
Trump had both halves of Congress for like half of his term in the first term, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, but that was his first term.
Yeah, and what did he get through?
Not much because he didn't know what he was doing. I agree
Okay,
with
so
part. He didn't know what
that
he was
reinforces my point. If you're saying that Joe Biden had both halves, wait, you just said the House. You didn't even say both halves. So if Trump was so divisive that he couldn't get any legislation through for 2 years, both halves of Congress, and Joe Biden was able to get multiple pieces of huge bipartisan legislation passed through Congress in his term, how could you say that one, Trump is going to get anything different past his second term, and two, that Joe Biden was so divisive or comparably divisive to Trump?
Well, in the same respect, Trump basically operates off executive orders solely.
Yeah.
So he doesn't really go to Congress that much. But when he does, it's a big thing because they usually don't work with him. They deny things and vote no on. But with this bill, kind of tax bill, whatever is coming tonight through this next week, it will get passed. That's what they're saying on the news cycle, at least. But that's one big thing that's coming.
Do you
But again, it's like with Tim Walz being devices and the Democrats are calling Elon Musk Hitler and Trump Hitler because it is.
because he did a Nazi salute. I mean, like that's just accurately describing
So him putting his hand out like that was a Nazi salute.
him putting his hand to his chest, and then extending it out that quickly. Yeah, probably.
Or like Tim Walz
Especially
saying
when
something
he
wasn't.
backed the far right, basically Nazi party in Germany, and when he has a history of saying that Jews pushing dialectical hatred against white people is the actual truth. Yeah, you could probably say that he's a little questionable.
Okay. But yeah, it's just you have to give Trump time. He's been there for 100 and some days. He's gonna get it right. And
Why
you
why are you
know,
so why are you so willing to say that he's going to get it right when he didn't get it right for the first 4 years of his political career?
no, again, I agree with you. I said I agree. He didn't know what he was doing his first term, but the first half at least. The second half was better than the first half. But with
The
the
second
second
half was
part
much
here,
worse.
well, no, because we were heading in the right direction before COVID came. Um,
Okay.
but we had record jobs and every stock market. It was good.
Yeah, because it takes a
Um,
lot to kill a growing economy. Yeah.
right, and he inherited a good economy from Biden here this past term. I agree.
Mhm.
The stock market was great when he inherited it. I agree with you on everything mostly, but it's just I don't agree with you know the bashing of him when he came in and he already did good work with the border already.
No.
What do you mean no?
I mean, robbing due process rights of potential deportees is not good work with the border.
Well, the Supreme Court really can't do that anyways. So they have to face due process.
Are
Yeah,
you
I
are you
agree
aware
with
that the
that.
Supreme Court ruled that twice because Donald Trump tried to do the same exact thing that SCOTUS just ruled against?
I know, but he has to. Well, that's why I want to
Do you
ask
think
you if he
do you think
doesn't.
that's a problem?
Yeah, it's a problem. I think they should have due process.
Do you think that
But
it's good that SCOTUS had to rule that twice?
no, it's not good. He should have listened the first time.
Do you think
But
that
what
if that's the reason why border encounters are low, that's not a good way of handling immigration?
I agree, but when Biden opened the border completely, that wasn't a good way either.
Yeah, what do you think that was worse than robbing people of their constitutional rights
No, but
and then
I
getting
think
shot down by SCOTUS and then trying to do it again?
no, but I think what was worse was what Biden did was completely open the border. That was
That
terrible.
was worse than robbing constitutional rights?
Well, yeah, but in the same respect, they broke
Really?
constitutional rights and they jumped the border.
No, they didn't break constitutional rights. And also,
It's
like
illegal.
it's illegal, but that's not in the Constitution. Whereas the president robbing people of their constitutional rights is way worse. In the same way that we would say that it's not robbing somebody of it, like it's not a fundamental like threat to like rule of law if somebody jaywalks, but it probably is if the president ends up killing one of his associates. Like that's actually like a threat to rule of law, whereas like another like kind of petty crime isn't. Whereas, like, somebody illegally crossing the border isn't as big a threat as Donald Trump robbing people of their constitutionally guaranteed rights.
Yeah, but they didn't have rights in the beginning because they were never allowed to be here legally.
Well, they do, and SCOTUS ruled that they do. Twice.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense because think about it like this:
It does make sense.
if I broke into your house, would you want me arrested or would you want me to have due process?
Uh, Being arrested would be being provided with due
I
process. You're
meant
going to be
arrested and
charged.
deported, arrested and deported,
No,
or
I wouldn't. It's if somebody broke into my house, I wouldn't want them deported without a trial
even
because
if they were.
that's not how our criminal justice system works.
It's just there's so many of them, and the amount of money it costs for these trials, and the time it takes, and where are they going to be at in the meantime?
Do
Where
you
are all
think
these
that's?
people going
Do
to
you
be?
think that's? Well, in ICE detention is where they're going to be. Do you think that's worth violating the Constitution?
I mean, I don't see why we need due process when you could just identify it right then and there. Do you have legitimate papers to be here? No. Okay, bye. Or you
Do
do.
you,
Good. Stay.
the problem is that ICE wasn't asking for the papers, so you need to apply out to the courts to say, hey, ICE isn't complying with my due process rights. But the problem is that there wasn't enough notice for the ability to apply out to the courts. That's what SCOTUS ruled. That they were trying to get people out, like detain them and then deport them within hours. That's not a meaningful compliance with due process rights. And that's what SCOTUS ruled twice.
Right, but I mean, I don't agree with everything SCOTUS does
Do you think
because
that
I
was a
don't
bad?
believe it.
Do you think it was a bad ruling to tell the Trump administration that they can't detain somebody and then deport them within a matter of a couple hours?
No, I agree with that one, but I'm just saying if you're going to go with
Okay,
SCOTUS
so
and say,
that's this whole thing. That's what I'm saying. That's what the due process rights were. Is that Donald Trump was trying to rob these people of constitutional notice of their ability to file for relief from their detention.
I misunderstood what you said. But why isn't it as simple as just, where's your identification at? Do you have it or no? No? Okay, well then you can't be here then.
Because that's not what ICE is doing. That's why.
So you're under the impression they're just going to people's houses, taking them, and just shipping them across the country. Then.
They're detaining people, they're giving them forms that they can't read, and then they'll pressure them to sign them without explaining what the form says, and they're using that as grounds to deport the people. That's what is alleged in the lawsuit.
Right, but where's the lawsuit at now? Is it?
Well, the whole class just got prevented from being deported immediately by SCOTUS.
So they ruled in favor of that lawsuit. Then is what you're saying? Yeah. Okay.
Kind of.
Yeah.
They were saying that Donald Trump was trying to deport them all before the lawsuit went through, so we have to put a temporary hold on the deportations. That's what the most recent update was.
Okay, but I just don't. I mean, there's not enough room in these detention places for them to be here.
There is.
That's, yeah, but who's paying for that?
Taxpayers. Mm-hmm.
And you're in favor
you
of your
pay-
tax dollars going to that?
Yes.
Wouldn't you think it'd be beneficial to have other things
No.
like infrastructure and all
Nope.
that other stuff?
Do you want to know why?
Okay, yeah.
Because we need to follow the Constitution, okay? My money going to prisons is fine because it's complying with everybody's constitutional rights. Once we start saying, well, it's not convenient for me to follow the Constitution, it's like I don't really feel like it feels like kind of a waste of time, that's how we end up collapsing into a dictatorship, because then elections are going to feel like a waste of time, free speech rights are going to feel like a waste of time, the right to the Second Amendment is going to feel like a waste of time. We can't start like trouncing on people's constitutional rights because it's inconvenient.
Okay. But they don't have constitutional rights.
They do under the 14th and 5th Amendments, and the Supreme Court ruled with me on that twice. So they do have constitutional rights. That is not like a debatable thing.
Depends on how you interpret it.
No, it doesn't.
It really does.
You're bound by SCOTUS decisions, right?
I'm bound?
Yes, you are bound by SCOTUS decisions, right?
What do you mean by bound? Like you have
like
to adhere to
if
it?
the Supreme Court rules something, you have to adhere to that ruling, right?
That's what they say.
Do you think that's true?
I mean, it depends what situation I was in.
Really?
I don't agree with the whole law at all times. No, I think.
No, I'm not.
sometimes you
I'm not
get-
asking if you agree with it. I'm saying it does legally bind you, right? Like those are legally binding precedent.
Yes, but do you believe that the Supreme Court should have more power than the president?
More power than the president. I think.
Yes, they
I
do.
think all four. I think all three branches have shared powers. It's not a matter of one branch having more power than the other. It's a matter of
Right.
the Supreme Court determines what is constitutional, and if the president is doing something unconstitutional, then I think SCOTUS should have the ability to prevent the president from doing something unconstitutional.
I mean, it just I just don't agree with the fact that
Do you not
we.
wait? Do you not agree with that? Do you disagree that
I
SCOTUS should
don't,
be able
because
to?
I'll tell you why. Because 70 million people vote for a candidate on the average, or whatever. Should those people's voices be overruled by 9 people?
Do you think that the president is bound by the Constitution?
To uphold the Constitution and adhere to it?
Yes? Do you think that they are bound by the Constitution?
I don't think it's I mean, I look at the Constitution as a handbook. Either you follow it or you don't follow it, but you should primarily follow it. But there are ways around it. It's just like at your job or something, or your career. Like, yeah, you have a handbook of rules that you could follow, but you can mend them. You know what I
So
mean? And that's
if the government ended up saying that it's illegal for you to criticize President Trump, would you support that?
No, because freedom of speech.
Why not? Yeah. Do you know what enshrines your protection to freedom of speech?
The amendment.
The First Amendment, right? And that's in the Constitution.
Right.
So why can't he just work around that amendment?
That's why I'm saying he should be able to. We should be able to. You can do whatever you want
Okay,
to do. It's your life.
So he should be able to do that. He should be able to make criticizing Donald Trump illegal.
If he wanted to, it doesn't mean people have to follow it.
Well, it would, because that would be a law.
I mean, laws aren't everything, though.
Do you want to tell that to the people in prison? I mean, like, laws aren't something that you could just walk around.
Actually, yeah, I do, because I believe that a good amount of prisoners are in there for things they didn't do.
Okay, who do you want to
Well,
take
that's
that to? I mean, this isn't what I'm asking about. I'm saying that the president absolutely has to follow the Constitution.
I mean, he takes an oath to do that, but again, I think that some things could be bent.
can be what? Can be bent?
Yeah, it could be like obscure because you got to think a lot of presidents abuse their power for things they shouldn't do. Like, do you agree with Joe Biden pardoning his son? Do you think that was good?
No, I don't think it was good, but it was constitutional.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So it's
That's
the same thing.
so
with,
it's no, it's a separate question. Do you think that the president should be able to do things that are unconstitutional?
it depends on what he's doing.
Do
Every
you think that
president,
that
every
sets? Do
country
you think
does
that that
things.
sets a good precedent that the president can just ignore the Constitution?
No, but let me ask you something. Do you believe that any president in any country doesn't bend the Constitution or the rules of their land ever? They all do it.
No, they don't all do it.
They do.
Sometimes they'll do something that it happens to be unconstitutional, but then it gets shot down by SCOTUS, and that's that. Donald Trump had to be shot down by SCOTUS twice at this point, and now you're arguing that those two shoot downs from the Supreme Court he could still ignore.
Because what are you gonna do to him? That's the thing. Like, yeah, the judges are there, but what are you gonna do? You can't.
Do you
impeach
understand that you're like arguing for a kingship right now?
Well, I personally believe the president should be able to do whatever he or she desires,
Even
and it,
violate
they do
our
anyway.
even violate our constitutionally protected rights?
I mean, they do it anyway.
They don't do it anyway.
They do.
Can you name one time that Joe Biden disobeyed the Supreme Court?
I don't know if there was any objections to what he was doing ever. Did they ever say anything that he did was wrong?
Yep.
Which was what?
He got shot down for trying to forgive the student loans.
Okay.
Okay. And then he adhered to that ruling.
Is there anything else that's more like crazier?
Not
That's not
really.
Okay.
So
well, yeah, I
don't you
think-
see that that's the problem, though, is that Donald Trump is doing these crazy unconstitutional things that he needs to be shot down by SCOTUS multiple times, and now his supporters are saying that he should be able to do it anyway?
I mean, yeah, because again, the president should be able to do whatever he or she desires to do.
Can you... No, that's like fundamentally anti-American. Do you think that the president should be able to not hold elections?
No, we should have an election.
Why shouldn't the president be able to do that if he wanted to?
Because, I mean, depends what he's doing. I mean, if he said that's what it is, then we have to. And that's what it is. And what are you gonna do? He's the president. Like if Joe Biden said there's no more elections, okay, that's fine. Stay in power then. Well, you're the president. Do
Really?
whatever you want. Yeah.
Do you acknowledge
just
that that's not how our system works at all?
No, I agree, but you have to admit that Constitution was written 200 some years ago. It is very
Can you tell
outdated.
me? Can you tell me what the point of the Constitution is? Like, what is the Constitution?
It's the basic principles and rules of the land.
Kind
The rights
of.
of the
You're
people.
close. You're close.
It's the basic rights of the people, rights of Americans.
It's the bound.
It's our
It's the
handbook.
binding law of the land. It's like the supreme law of the
yeah.
land.
Yeah, it's our handbook, yes.
It's not our handbook. It's the binding supreme law of the land. There's nothing in the
Okay.
Constitution that you can ignore.
Right. But
So why are you arguing that Trump should be able to ignore all of it?
Because he's the president.
Okay, why would the Constitution have certain bounds on presidential power if the president can just ignore them?
Well, they actually don't to a point because actually Theodore Roosevelt installed himself for a third term.
Yeah, before the 22nd Amendment.
But you can't do that.
You could at
Well,
that
he's
point. That's why we passed the 22nd Amendment.
Yeah.
Right. So it wasn't illegal at the time. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay, so it wasn't in the Constitution, so they didn't ignore the Constitution. So I'm going to ask you this again. Why would they enshrine particular powers against the president, saying that the president can't do these things if the president could just ignore that anyway?
Because I think the president can do whatever he wants to do.
Okay. Anything else?
I mean, no, I think you have to admit that everything is looking good. Inflation is down to the.
No.
Very
I
far
think
down.
you actually outlined every single problem that I have right now.
Look at the inflation numbers. Tell me I'm wrong. Is it down or is it up since he took office?
It's probably down.
Down.
Mhm.
Right? So look how good the economy is. And look, everything is great.
I think you're
Age-
just like really, really willing to sell out the entire history of our country, what makes our country so great, because because just like blind submission to authority.
Oh yeah, I mean the president.
All right,
It's
all
like,
right, cool.
at your job, do you have a say so to the manager? Oh, I'm not going to do that. No, you have to do it. Right?
Yeah, okay. So why does Trump have to like? Why is Trump bound by the Constitution, but he could just ignore certain things in it?
Because he's the manager. He's the president.
He's no, the
He's the
president
CEO.
isn't the head of the president isn't the most powerful being in the country. That's not how it works.
He is. Who's above the president?
The Constitution.
But who enforces the Constitution?
Who enforces the Constitution? It'd be the executive branch,
Which is the president.
headed by the president.
Yes.
So
Okay.
what's their
Yeah,
job?
well,
But
you
what,
said
wait,
the
wait, wait,
president
wait,
is in
wait, wait,
charge
wait,
of the
hold
country?
on. What's the president's job?
To run the country.
No, it's not to run the country. He takes an oath to.
Defend the country.
Nope. I mean, kind of.
To withhold the Constitution, maybe? I don't know.
Uphold the Constitution. Yes, uphold, defend, and protect the Constitution.
Okay, but let me ask you something. If the president doesn't lead the country, then who's the one who says, let's go to war? Let's push into that
He's the
land?
commander in
Who's-
chief. Yeah.
Okay, so there's no one above the president.
The Constitution is above the president. The president's whole job is there to protect the president or to protect the Constitution.
Who makes up the Constitution?
The framers of particular amendments. It's usually going to be either state legislatures or a constitutional convention.
Okay, and they're above the president, then is what you're saying?
The Constitution, yes, is above the president.
No, I'm saying individuals.
There's
Who individually in the country is above the president?
that's just
Nobody.
not how our system works. We do shared powers between the three branches.
You don't make any sense.
I think you
Who
just don't
individu-
understand how the country works.
No, you don't understand. Who individually is higher up than Donald Trump?
I'm
Who?
not going to say that there's one individual higher than the president, but it's not the case that the president can just ignore everybody else because he's individually an important figure. We have shared powers between the three branches, and the president is only there to uphold the Constitution. That's his job. And your
He's there to
argument
uphold the Constitution. He's there to sign executive orders. He's there to run the country.
to uphold the Constitution, yes. You can't sign an executive order to get rid of something in the Constitution, right?
He has to go through Congress.
No. Do you think Congress can overwrite the Constitution?
I said if he wants to override the Constitution, he has to go through Congress and states have to vote for it. Yes. You have to have like a 13 states have to vote for it.
Yeah, that's passing an amendment. That's not passing an executive order.
No, but they'd be changing the Constitution.
Yeah, via an amendment, not via executive order.
Yeah. We're on the same page. We're just saying it differently. I know what you mean. Yes.
No, you're saying it wrong. That's the problem. And this tying back to the president being able to violate the Constitution is just ridiculous. I encourage you to find me one single politically legitimate person who says the president has the ability to ignore the Constitution. Can you find me one?
Me?
Okay. Anything else?
No. I think it. Is there anybody else? Is there anybody else requesting?
Yeah.
Okay. Have fun with them. Appreciate your time, man.
Yep, you too. I don't even know. Like, I don't even know what to say at that point. Holy.